Want to know what makes small-town America really angry? Provokes millions into shaking their fists at Washington? Well, this is one of them, a sewer system. In the volumes of mail received by 60 Minutes from people who feel they're being raked over, the subject of sewer systems ranks right up near the top under the heading of most provocative. You see, 6 years ago, stiff new environmental laws were passed, and hundreds of small towns that had been dumping raw sewage into rivers were approached by one Washington agency which said, here's the law, build a sewer system. Now, in many cases, such a system would cost more than all the real estate it would be hooked to. So how do they pay for it? Enter a second Washington agency to say, we'll lend you the hundreds of thousands you'll need at reasonable interest. Just pay us back later. We've received a number of letters from such towns saying generally, okay, we tried, now come out and look at the mess.
We are having a lot of stuff shoved down our throat by EPA, FHA, and whatever A you want to talk about. We've got a lot of dictators instead of just one.
This is Grandview, Indiana, population 600 plus, perched on the bank of the Ohio River in the southwest corner of the state. There's not much money here, a lot of retired people, average income around $7,000 a year. In fact, when they first started talking sewers here, there were still people who considered septic tanks a newfangled waste of money. Coming from a big city, you might not think much could go afoul here. Wrong.
We just raised hell. We rejected every load of stuff that come in here and everything else.
Talked to some of the guys that working on it, and they even know it wasn't put in right.
It makes me mad that they're doing us this way, but they're not only doing us this way, they're doing everybody all over the whole country.
That's right.
And it's going to have to come to a stop one of these days.
That's right.
You see, Grandview was told a few years back that for $500,000 they could build a sewer system and be on the good side of the new environmental laws. But how in the world would these people come up with $500,000? Local taxes collected in Grandview add up to only $11,000 a year total. We'll lend you the money, said the government. Besides, you have no real choice. Build it. So it began, and so did the headaches for people like Fred Lloyd. He's chairman of the town board, works in a bank. He's also chief of the town's volunteer fire department.
Now, when this project first started, did the town feel it could afford it?
Personally, I couldn't see how it could, and neither could many of the people. But they just went under the assumption that that was the way that things were supposed to go, and then maybe they were supposed to go that way.
Harold Schroeder is town treasurer, town clerk, plus superintendent of gas, water, and streets, and he was made the town inspector on the sewer project. The town got $100,000 in grants, then borrowed nearly $400,000 from the Farmers Home Administration, FHA. The plan was they'd start paying that back when people finally hooked their houses into the new sewer system and paid a monthly fee for the privilege. But the first time they saw plans for the project, they thought something was wrong.
You see, generally this is how it works. The town's first requirement was to hire an engineering firm. The engineer is a kind of architect. That is, he looks over the land, then designs a complete sewer system. The idea is to have a sewer system design that will be within the town's budget, that is, the budget with federal help, so that when the contractors put out their bids will be, in this case, $500,000 or less. Now, when the Grandview Town Board took a look at the engineer's first plans, they thought they were too elaborate, too expensive.
When we rejected this, he says, go ahead and let bids and see. It's not going to cost you anything to find out. Bids, of course, were rejected.
They had to go back and redo it?
Yes.
The engineering consulting firm?
Right.
At what price?
At a price of $10,000 to get the plans released.
This is the man responsible for the plans, Ken DeLapp of Seco Engineers. And his memory is different from that of the town inspectors.
We suggested the redesign cost would be as much as $5,000, as I recall. And ultimately, I think we gave it to them for $1,200 or $1,800 in the spirit of getting the dang project going again.
The engineer says the redesign was $1,200 extra. The town inspector says $10,000, which, if true, would be almost as much as Grandview collects in taxes for any year. And that's but the first of a string of contradictions.
Why was Gale Smith Construction Company picked?
Next, choice of a contractor.
The reason that Gale Smith was picked is because he was the low bidder.
Gale Smith Excavating was the low bidder. But the town board had seen his work in a nearby village and didn't like what they saw. They wanted the second lowest bidder, whose offer was only $5,000 higher. But they say the government wouldn't let them. Here's the man who works for the government that loaned the town the money, Ralph Chauvin of FHA, who insists the town could have had a different contractor.
On the particular project, we ask that they submit a letter to Farmers Home, and EPA requires this also, on their justification for going to the second, third, or whatever the bidder may be. And they never wrote a letter to Farmers Home Administration asking for the second contractor. And when the final engineering report came in, it was for the contractor that we have.
But don't try to tell that to the town.
The way the Farmers Home Administration put it to us, we had to take the low bidder or they wouldn't give us the money.
So work began. Because of Grandview's location, they can expect to be flooded at least once every year by the Ohio River. And that means their sewer system would have to be watertight to keep floodwaters out.
The town board was looked up on as amateurs, but it seems the professionals fell flat on their faces and we amateurs became the watchdog on the job.
Schroeder, backed by the town board, constantly objected that dozens of manholes were not up to specifications. Sewer lines were improperly graded, pipes improperly installed and broken. And they had pictures taken following a heavy rain. This, they insisted, is not how your average watertight sewer system is supposed to work. Another day, says Schroeder, they tested one part of the system for leaks, poured 5,000 gallons of water into a sewer pipe between two manholes.
And the water disappeared between the two manholes out through openings, broken pipe, and cracks and that sort of thing.
Over a space of what, a couple hundred yards?
About 300 feet.
This is the man who built the sewer, the low bidder, Gale Smith.
You've heard the complaints that you did not do a good job.
Many times.
And your answer has been?
No, I don't believe that's so.
What about the story that Mr. Schroeder was told that at one point, 5,000 gallons of water was pumped into one manhole and raced downhill to the next one, and that not one drop of water made it? Is that story true?
No, I never heard of that story.
Mr. Smith, let me show you some photographs that Mr. Schroeder says are, quote, proof positive that the system won't work and that you didn't meet specifications.
And that picture was taken before the job was ever finished.
It's your contention this wouldn't happen when the sewer system was in operation?
No, that wouldn't happen when it was in operation.
No way?
No way.
Well, now back to the man who designed the sewer. Did the contractor build a good system?
No, because again, we rejected the sewer system. We have never accepted the sewer system in Grandview.
Did anyone from the engineering firm ever come to you and say, listen, this job is not being installed properly?
No, they never told us that.
Mr. Massey, engineer on the project, took a turnabout and sent a letter to the Gale Smith Excavating Company on July 16, 1973, stating that in general it had been concluded that all manholes installed in this project are unacceptable.
About the Farmers Home Loan Association, did they complain to you at any time?
No.
Ever come to you with complaints saying, Mr. Schroeder and the town council believe you aren't doing this job properly?
No.
This, however, is a letter from the FHA to Smith's bonding company, officially stating that Smith had breached his contract.
Schroeder and the town board kept complaining about the way their sewer system was being built. Letters, phone calls, personal visits to Indianapolis, Chicago, even Washington. But they said nobody was listening.
But why would the town pay for work they thought was inferior? The town inspector points to the government, which he says co-signed the paychecks with this verbal promise.
They'll take out the work that isn't done properly and replace it with the proper materials, and they will do the work right, and you're going to be happy in the end, or you won't have to pay for this job. And the board decided to go ahead and make the payment, and they made the payment, and nothing happens. It continues just like it is. The stuff isn't taken out and corrected, and we still wind up with the same daggone thing going on.
And from the government, it's basically the town's problem.
We have worked with the town to try to help them solve their problems, but basically, this is their project, and it is their responsibility to go to their engineer, their contractor, and follow through.
We can only notify the community that the system is not constructed in accordance with the plans and specifications.
Well, get us
We have no legal status for the contractor. His contract is with the city.
Well, why doesn't the town sue the contractor? They used to have a part-time town attorney.
We were paying him $100 a year to do a job, and we feel he didn't do it. He always felt that the problem could be negotiated. And when we could go out there on the job and see things for ourselves that weren't done right, we felt there was no negotiation to it. But yet, he still tried to make us negotiate. The town doesn't have any more money to go through court with this thing. We're just a small town, we're a poor town, and we just don't have any more money to sue.
The contractor, he's suing the town now for back pay, says the town's biggest problem is its own inspector.
Was his attitude one of complaining every day?
Every day.
What did he complain about?
Well, everything.
I think it's a shame in this country to where we are being forced by people to accept jobs that are not done according to contract. In this case, it's not minor things, it's not little flimsy things. I can turn my head and not see those. But I can't turn my head and not see things that causes this problem.
The town finally fired their engineering firm, got another one. The contractor was called back and made repairs. That was 3 years ago, and nothing but rhetoric has happened since.
The professionals involved all agree. There are still problems, but the town should go ahead, hook up the sewer system to the houses and see if it works. The town flatly refuses. The town's argument is, in brief, if the sewer system is not properly built, as we, the townspeople, believe it is not, if it isn't properly built, then it'll clog up, and that will require expensive maintenance machinery and full-time maintenance crews. The town's argument boils down to, listen, we are not morally, perhaps not even legally, obliged to accept an inferior system to what we contracted for and paid for. So where does that leave the score? You don't have your money out of it, I assume?
No.
Has this been a highly profitable operation?
Yes, we've lost $10,000 on the project so far and have not been paid our final billing, which is, I suspect we never will be paid.
The government, the FHA, they're suing the town in federal court, trying to collect $100,000 in back interest and principal payments, which amounts to about $500 for every family in Grandview. And where would they get that kind of money?
Have the courts appoint a receiver, and then in turn put the thing in operation, and then we would advance monies to complete the system, whatever it's going to take to get it into operation conditions if this is required.
I sat down in August and drafted up a 3-page letter to President Carter.
They say they'd given up on their congressional delegation, so they went right to the top, the White House, for help in their fight with the FHA. And the reply?
We got an answer back to the letter, which was answered by the Farmers Home Administration on Farmers Home Administration stationery, saying that the receivership was our only way out and they were sorry, but they would go far enough to say that they would bend over backwards to lend us any more money we would need to get the system fixed up and put back in operation.
So where does all of this leave the little town that tried? Well, they still have an only partially completed, badly deteriorating sewage system that has never been put into operation. Some experts are advising them, put a little more money into it. It may yet work. Others are saying, bury it, forget it, write it off. One federal agency, the FHA, is suing the citizens of Grandview to get its money back, while another federal agency, the EPA, is saying, look, what has happened is regrettable, but regardless, we must insist. Grandview has to have a sewage system.
We now have the FHA suit pending, and who do you think's going to pay for that? The people.